Welcome back. The Ombudsman for Short-Term Insurance and the Financial Sector Conduct Authority have their hands full. Businesses allege their business interruption insurance claims haven't been paid out. That's because insurers are claiming COVID-19 is a notifiable disease. To explain to us just what that means, I'm joined by Peter Nkuna from the Office of the Short-Term Insurance Ombudsman. Thanks very much for joining us this evening. Firstly, let's find out, how do South African short-term insurers usually deal with claims relating to infectious diseases?
Good evening, and thank you for having us on the television. We have started off by looking at historically what insurance companies do in terms of providing cover for instances like the current one. And what we found is that you can't really say there is a consistent let's call it approach, for want of a better word, in the sense that each and every policy has its own terms and conditions, and therefore, based on whatever the terms and conditions of that policy, the insurer would then either settle the claim or not settle it accordingly. One of the common things that we found is that a lot of instances, business interruption cover exists only where there is some sort of physical damage or harm. And you also find, on the other hand, that there are some insurers that expressly exclude cover where you're dealing with pandemics and things like that. And the reason for that is mainly that the risk might be too high for the particular insurer, and that is why it would not be prepared to take on that risk for whatever amount of premium.
So can you explain to us this concept of notifiable disease and how it relates to short-term or business interruption insurance?
Okay, it isn't necessarily an insurance term, and I'm not so sure I'm the best person to explain it, but my understanding of it is that there would be certain diseases that would require of upon the doctor or whatever medical expert that diagnoses it, having to go and report it, and there's a database of the people that have been found to have the disease, and perhaps there are steps that also need to be in place to manage the disease. And in the current case, what has happened is that the insurance companies have raised that, or at least some of them have raised that as the reason why the claims are not payable, saying that in terms of the policy terms and conditions, if there's an exclusion for those, then there would be no cover for the specific clients. And again, it relates to what I said earlier on, in that the insurer would have done an assessment and decided that the risk was too much for it, and therefore it wasn't willing to carry that, and that is why it is excluded from cover in terms of the policies that are provided by that insurer.
Tell us a little bit about the volumes of complaints that your office has received recently in light of COVID-19.
We have started seeing the volumes increase to the extent that we, I think on the 2nd of June, had to issue a press release explaining our stance on these matters. And mainly that was because a lot of insurance companies were telling their clients that our office does not have the jurisdiction to deal with complaints relating to disputes around this issue. And we then had to explain to the industry and to the consumers out there that is not quite correct. And that basically stems from the limitation that we have had in practice over the years, where we were saying that when it comes to commercial disputes, the office has limited jurisdiction in that we would only be able to deal with those matters that are fairly easy to resolve, and where the matters may be a little bit more complex, there would probably be better forums like the courts to go to have those matters resolved. And that is mainly because our office, the way it is structured, is meant to go through a lot of complaints in as short a space of time as possible, and therefore allocating a lot of resources on complex matters would not be ideal for the office. So insurers, or at least some of them, have then used that to say OSTI does not have the jurisdiction to deal with business interruption disputes, and therefore we felt the need to then go out there and say that is not correct. We will deal with each and every complaint that comes through to our office in that regard, on the same basis that we have dealt with all the other complaints, which is that each one is treated on its own facts and circumstances.
Unfortunately, that's where we do have to leave it. Thank you very much for your participation. That has clarified, I think, a lot for some businesses. Thank you very much. That was Peter and Kuna from the Office of the Short-Term Insurance Ombudsman.